Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. This isn't a love story. It's not even a story about a bad marriage. It's a story about a man who picked up a sock from under the couch and finally saw the truth. It was gray, faded, inside out. That sock changed everything. I was lying on the floor, trying to fix the leg of the coffee table. One of the wobbly ones Dana swore gave our living room character. I reached under the couch for the wrench I dropped, and my hand brushed against it. Not mine. Not hers. It was a man's athletic sock, the kind you'd wear to the gym. Size large. I wear mediums. I know that because Dana once mocked me about it in front of her friends, laughing that I had small, polite feet. Everyone laughed. I laughed too. That's what I did back then. Laughed at the things that hurt. But this sock wasn't polite. It was a warning. I didn't panic. Not at first. I just held it up like it was a puzzle piece I hadn't asked for. Dana wasn't home. She was at her book club, which she claimed met on Sunday mornings now, at a rooftop cafe. Right. I tossed the sock into the laundry bin, but it kept crawling back into my brain. I started replaying little moments. Her rushing into the shower after coming home late. Her phone always on silent. That perfume I didn't buy her. The fact that she started waxing again but hadn't touched me in weeks. Still, I told myself I was overthinking it. Until she came home early and froze. Not like someone surprised to see me, like someone caught. Her eyes dropped straight to the laundry bin where the sock sat, glaring like a confession. And that's when she said it. Calm, cold, like reading from a script. Go ahead. But the moment you walk out that door, our marriage is over and you're not coming back. That was her move, turning my suspicion into guilt, flipping the script, making me the aggressor for even considering leaving. I didn't say a word. I walked past her, grabbed my jacket, and opened the door. And right before I stepped out, I looked back. She wasn't crying. She wasn't sorry. She was already texting someone, probably the foot that matched that sock. I didn't slam the door. I just closed it, quiet like a final page turning. But this story wasn't over. Not even close. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a little. I lay in the spare bedroom staring at the ceiling like it held answers. That sock. It was still haunting me, sitting on the dresser like a judge. And Dana? She didn't come knocking. Didn't ask where I went. Didn't check in. She just left me there in silence, as if everything that happened didn't matter. By morning, my mind was unraveling faster than I could control it. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even heartbroken yet. I was something worse, curious. So I did something I'm not proud of. While she was in the shower, I grabbed her phone. I knew the password. She never changed it. Same one since we got married, my birthday. I guess she never thought I'd have a reason to look. Or maybe she didn't care if I did. The moment the screen lit up, I knew I'd made a mistake. Not because I found nothing, but because I found everything. The messages weren't hidden. There wasn't even a fake name. Just Colby Jim. I opened it expecting small talk or some innocent conversation. Instead, I saw her telling him that she missed his arms around her, that she couldn't stop thinking about last Thursday, that she felt alive again when she was with him. And worst of all, that she wished I would leave her so she didn't have to be the bad guy. Every single word punched through my chest like a steel rod. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Something in me needed more. I couldn't walk away on just texts. I needed to see it. To burn the image into my brain so I could never gaslight myself into thinking I was wrong. So I followed her. That Thursday, I pretended to head to work. Instead, I sat in my car 3 blocks down with a thermos of cold coffee and a stomach full of lead. I waited, watched, and timed everything. At 6:17 p.m., Dana walked out in jeans I hadn't seen before and that low-cut black top she swore didn't fit anymore. She looked happy, relaxed, free. She wasn't heading to book club. She drove to the gym. Not our neighborhood gym, the upscale one on the other side of town. The one with valet parking and smoothie bars and a private rooftop yoga deck. I followed her inside. I wasn't dressed for it, but I didn't care. I told the front desk I was looking for my wife. The receptionist smiled. "Oh, Dana? She's usually in the private PT room with Colby. Colby, Mr. Sock himself. I walked through those glass doors not knowing what I'd see. I didn't expect what came next. I didn't expect her arms wrapped around him, her lips near his ear, laughing in that same flirty whisper she used to use on me when we were still new. They didn't see me, but I saw everything, and I walked out, again. But this time I didn't go home. I didn't drive far, just to the edge of town, where the streets thinned out and the neon signs gave way to trees and silence. I parked outside an old diner I used to go to with my dad, back when life felt more predictable, more fair. My hands were still trembling. I kept opening and closing them like that would push the images out of my head. Her hands on him, her eyes lighting up the way they used to for me. I wanted to scream, break something, but instead, I did the only thing I could think of. I called my brother. Elliot answered on the second ring, his voice groggy. "Jay, you okay?" There was a pause. I didn't know how to start. For a second, I almost said, "Never mind." But I didn't. I told him everything. About the sock, the messages, the gym, the moment that cracked me wide open. He didn't say much at first. Then came a long breath. And then something I wasn't expecting. "I wasn't going to be the one to tell you," he said, voice tight. "But maybe it's time." "What do you mean?" I asked, my heart sinking lower than I thought it could. "There were rumors, man. Even Mom noticed. She mentioned Dana always talking to some guy at that fancy gym during the last family barbecue. But I told her to drop it. I didn't want to believe it either. I just sat there, blinking at the steering wheel. "So you all knew?" "No, not knew, but suspected. The signs were there." And just like that, I realized how alone I'd been for months. People saw it. People knew even in passing. And I, like a fool, kept convincing myself I was just being insecure. "She told me," I said slowly, "that if I walked out that door, our marriage was over. Like she'd planned it all in advance. Like she wanted me to walk away." "She probably did," Elliot said bluntly. "That way she could blame you for leaving. Clean exit. No guilt." That hit harder than I wanted to admit. Not because he was wrong, but because it made too much sense. Dana was always about optics. She'd rather orchestrate the ending than live in the mess of it. "Come stay here for a bit," he offered. "Clear your head. Don't let her control the narrative." But I wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of thinking she'd pushed me out. I wanted answers. I wanted the truth. And above all, I wanted to know how long this had been going on. So I went back. Not home. To the gym. I waited outside, parked across the street like some worn-down private investigator with nothing left to lose. I watched Colby walk out first. Tall, cocky, muscles bulging through his compression shirt like he thought life was a photo shoot. He got into a black Dodge Charger and drove off without a care in the world. 10 minutes later, Dana followed. Different outfit, lipstick reapplied, and a smile on her face that crushed me all over again. She got into her car and sat there for a while, texting. I made a decision right then. This wasn't going to be a dramatic confrontation. No yelling, no tears. I wasn't going to play the fool in her game. I was going to dig, observe, learn. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, but deep down, I knew Dana had more secrets. And if I wanted closure, real closure, I had to find every one of them. The thing about betrayal is, it doesn't always need proof. It just needs silence. Her silence. My silence. The long, hollow space between us where words used to live. That's where it grew. And now it was all I could hear. I didn't go home that night. I stayed in a cheap roadside motel that smelled like mildew and broken promises. I barely slept. I kept thinking about how she used to wait up for me with tea and a blanket. How she'd send drive-safe texts when I worked late. I thought maybe if I closed my eyes long enough, I could rewind everything and find where it went wrong. But no matter how far back I traced it, the moment always returned to that sock. That stupid, out-of-place sock. The one she never mentioned. The one that sat in the laundry basket like it belonged there. By morning, I had a plan. Not revenge. I'm not built for revenge. I don't have the heart for cruelty. but I needed to see what she'd do when the script changed. When I stopped acting like the fragile husband she'd grown comfortable manipulating. I called her around noon. My voice was calm, collected. Hey, I'm sorry for yesterday. You were right. I shouldn't have walked out. I'll be home tonight. Let's talk. She sounded relieved. Not emotional, just relieved. That told me everything I needed. No questions about where I was. No concern. She just wanted to reset the game. Put the mask back on. When I got home, everything looked staged. Candles. Soft jazz. One of her frozen pasta dishes in the oven. She didn't do any of that for me in months. She greeted me in that silk robe I bought her for our anniversary. The one she claimed wasn't her style and never wore again. Now suddenly it was. We sat down. She poured wine. I didn't drink it. I let her speak first. And she did. Like someone reading from a brochure called How to Pretend You're Still a Wife. She talked about how stress had gotten to her. How she felt we were drifting. How she wanted to reconnect. I let her talk. I nodded in all the right places. I even touched her hand. And then I said the one sentence that shattered her act. Where did you meet him? She froze. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. No denial. No outrage. Just the sound of a wall crumbling behind her eyes. I leaned forward. Colby, right? The guy from the gym. I've seen the texts. I've seen the two of you. Just tell me when it started. Silence. Then the tiniest laugh. That's what broke me. She laughed. You wouldn't understand, she said softly. You stopped being there, Jay. I needed something to feel real again. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stared at her, letting her drown in the silence she had created. Finally, she stood up and walked away, muttering something about how she was tired of being the villain. That night, I packed a bag. Not because I was leaving, but because I wanted her to wonder if I was. I left it by the door, right where she'd see it. And then I waited. Waited to see what she'd do when she thought she'd lost control. The next morning, I got my answer. And it came from someone I never expected. I wasn't even looking at my phone. It buzzed once, then again, while I stood in front of the mirror, half-dressed and hollow. Dana was in the kitchen pretending to be busy, slamming cabinets just loud enough to let me know she was there, but not saying a word. The air between us was thick with what we weren't saying. That was her new language. Passive noise. Avoidance. When I finally checked my phone, it wasn't a number I recognized. No name, no emoji, just 10 digits and a single sentence. She's been doing this longer than you think. I stared at it. My first instinct was to ignore it. I wasn't in the mood for cryptic nonsense. But something about the timing, right after the night she almost admitted everything, made it impossible to dismiss. I replied, "Who is this?" A minute passed. Then, "You don't know me, but I know her, and I know Colby." That was enough to pull me outside. I didn't want Dana hearing this. I walked down to the parking lot, heart pounding like I was about to commit a crime. "Prove it," I typed. Seconds later, an image came through. Dana. Same gym outfit. Same ponytail. But not with Colby. With another guy. Different build. Older. Not as polished. She was leaning against his car. Laughing. Touching his chest. Slipping something into his pocket. Date stamped. 6 months ago. My blood ran cold. I asked, "Who is he?" The reply came quick. Ex-trainer. Colby wasn't the first. Just the latest. "You're not the only husband she's done this to. Ask her about Derek." I didn't reply. Couldn't. I was frozen. Not because I didn't believe it, but because I did. To fit. The weird gaps in her schedule. The sudden change in gym memberships. The times she needed space. I thought Colby was the affair. The big secret. But he was just one in a string of borrowed faces. And I was the idiot who kept thinking I was the problem. I sat on the curb, phone clutched in my hand, trying to breathe. Then I did something reckless. I called the number. He answered with a simple yeah. His voice wasn't threatening, just tired, like someone who'd been carrying a weight for too long. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. A pause. Then, Because I was you. 3 years ago. Different name, same Dana. I wish someone had warned me. He told me everything. How he met her at the same gym. How she flirted with him even while still married to someone else. How she moved through relationships like stepping stones, never really ending one before starting the next. How her exes never talked because they were too ashamed, too broken. I thanked him, then hung up. When I walked back upstairs, Dana was still in the kitchen, now scrolling her phone like nothing had changed. I stood in the doorway watching her, wondering how many versions of her existed. How many of them I'd never get to meet. She looked up and smiled weakly. "You're not seriously leaving, are you?" I didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, I went to the closet, pulled out the suitcase I had packed the night before, and zipped it shut. She didn't stop me. She didn't cry. She just watched. And then she said it again. "Go ahead. But the moment you walk out that door, our marriage is over and you're not coming back." This time it wasn't a threat. It was a relief. But I still didn't open the door, because I had one more thing to do first. The suitcase was at my feet. The door was behind me, and Dana stood in the kitchen like nothing was happening, as if the life she'd wrecked wasn't crumbling a few steps away. But I didn't leave. Not yet. Something inside me, some last flicker of desperation or pride, needed to see her react. To watch her lie to my face one last time and finally stop pretending I didn't see it all. So I set my phone on the counter between us and tapped the screen. The picture came up first. Dana with the man from the car, the ex-trainer. Her hand on his chest. Her smile wide and open, the kind I hadn't seen in over a year. She glanced at it. No shock. No guilt. She just blinked slowly and said, "Where did you get that?" I ignored her question. "His name's Derek. That's what he told me. Said you used him just like you used Colby. Like you're using me." Her jaw tightened, but her face remained infuriatingly calm. "You're listening to strangers now?" "No. I'm listening to patterns," I snapped, louder than I meant to. "And they all lead back to you." She turned her back and poured herself more coffee, as if we were discussing weekend plans. "You think you know everything, Jay, but you don't. You never paid attention. That's why it happened." I stepped closer. "Don't blame this on me." "I'm not blaming," she said, setting her mug down. "I'm explaining. There's a difference." That's when I realized she had rehearsed this. All of it. The words. The tone. Even the robe she wore now was probably part of some twisted performance she thought I'd fall for. A man walks in with evidence of multiple affairs, and she explains it like it's a scheduling conflict? "You could have just left," I said. "You didn't have to humiliate me. You didn't have to make me feel insane every time I questioned something." She sighed then, and this part still burns. She actually looked tired. "Tired of me. You always wanted a simple life. I didn't. I got bored. I'm sorry, but you being broken over this isn't going to make me feel guilty." There it was. The final nail. She didn't deny it. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just confessed with apathy, like she was clocking out of a job she was never fully invested in. She even had the nerve to shrug and say, "Maybe I'm not made for marriage." I stood there, silent. For the first time, I had nothing left to say. Every word felt pointless. Every question already answered. And yet, I still didn't open the door, because something in me snapped in that moment. I realized I didn't want to walk away feeling like a victim. I wanted her to feel it too. The weight, the consequence. Not just of what she'd done, but of who she'd done it to. So I picked up my phone again, pulled up the audio files. "Do you remember your last call with Colby?" I asked. Her eyes narrowed. "I do," I said. "I recorded it. I wanted to know what you sounded like when you were happy." She moved toward me like she was about to lunge, but stopped herself. "You're sick." "No," I said. "I'm just finally done being your fool." Then I turned and walked to the door. She didn't follow. She didn't scream. She just stood there in silence, staring at the space where I used to be. And when the door closed behind me, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the beginning of something I hadn't had in years, clarity. I didn't go to Elliot's place like I said I would. Couldn't. I needed air. Silence. Somewhere I could sit and feel the weight of everything that just happened without someone looking at me with pity in their eyes. So I drove north. No destination. No music. Just the sound of tires humming on the road and the occasional buzz of my phone. Her name lighting up over and over, which I ignored every time. I ended up parked outside an old church in a quiet town I hadn't been to in years. We once attended a wedding there, a friend of Dana's. I remember her laughing that day, drinking too much white wine, whispering things to me during the ceremony that made me feel like I was the luckiest guy alive. That version of her was gone. Maybe she never existed. Maybe I just created her in my head. While sitting there, I checked my email. I wasn't even expecting anything important, just killing time. But then I saw it. A message from the same anonymous guy who'd sent me the photo of Dana and Derek. The subject line simply said, "You should see this." Inside was a single file, a scanned court document. At first, I didn't recognize the name. Madison Reyes. Then my stomach dropped. Dana's real name. We'd talked about it once. How she legally changed her name after college because she hated how Madison sounded. I never questioned it. Why would I? People change names for all kinds of reasons. But there it was. A court record from 5 years before we met. A restraining order. Filed by a man named Jared Fenshaw. Her ex. Not a fling. A live-in partner. And the details were horrifying. Manipulation. Emotional blackmail. Allegations of threats. Accusations of sleeping with multiple coworkers during their relationship and using his finances to cover her tracks. He claimed she drained his savings and convinced him he was mentally unstable, until he finally snapped and ended up hospitalized for stress-related seizures. Couldn't breathe. I emailed the guy back. "How did you find this?" He responded in less than a minute. "It took me years to recover from what she did. I only found out who she was with now because she reused the same fake name. You weren't the first, and I doubt you'll be the last." I sat there for what felt like an hour, reading the document over and over, trying to fit this version of Dana with the one I'd held on a pedestal for so long. And the terrifying thing was, it fit. It explained everything. The emotional games. The manipulation. The way she shifted blame like it was her native language. She didn't just cheat. She destroyed. And I had walked right into it, blind and trusting. I thought I'd hit the bottom already. But this was something else. This was learning the person I loved wasn't just broken. She was dangerous. I forwarded the email to myself. Saved it. Printed it at a library down the road. I wanted to have a copy in my hands, to feel the weight of it. It wasn't just digital anymore. It was real. Tangible. Proof that I wasn't crazy. And then I made one more call to a lawyer. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want a public scene. I just wanted out. Clean. Quiet. Legal. When I finally turned my phone back on later that evening, I had 14 missed calls from Dana. The last voicemail was just her breathing heavily, then whispering, "Please don't disappear." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered how easy it was for her to look me in the eye and lie. I went back one last time. Not to argue. Not to scream. I had no energy left for rage. I just wanted to leave things the way they really were. Without the lies, without the mask, without her rewriting the ending for sympathy points. She wasn't home when I arrived. That was probably for the best. I left the envelope on the kitchen table. Inside was everything. Copies of the messages, the photo of her with Derek, the court document, and a signed separation agreement drafted by my lawyer. Neat. Civil. Final. But I also left a note. I didn't write something angry or bitter. I simply wrote, "I believed in the best parts of you until you made me doubt my own. I'm not broken. I'm just finally done pretending this was love. Good luck, Dana." I didn't take anything that wasn't mine. I packed a few clothes, my laptop, and an old photo of my dad and me fixing up my first car. A reminder that there was a time I built things with my hands instead of watching everything fall apart. As I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, I expected to feel grief, or loss, or some crushing sense of emptiness. But what I felt instead was light. like I'd been dragging a shadow behind me for years and finally stepped into the sun. A few days later, I moved into a small place near a lake. Quiet, peaceful, no drama. I started sleeping again, eating real meals, even laughing. Elliot visited often, and one evening, as we sat by the water, he said something that stuck with me. Maybe the version of you she tore apart wasn't the full picture. Maybe you're still becoming who you were always supposed to be. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't flinch at the idea of becoming. I was ready for it. As for Dana, I never heard her voice again. She texted, emailed, tried to guilt me with long monologues and half-hearted apologies. I didn't respond. Some doors don't need to be slammed, they just need to stay closed. And mine finally was. That's the end of my story. But now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever discovered something shocking about someone you thought you knew? How did you handle it? Let's talk in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story hit home, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us here on Reddit Confessions, where stories meet real endings. See you in the next one.